Good idea. Yeah.
I'm gonna need some therapy.
All right, we will call the May 24th Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you join us for the pledge in a moment.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is open forum. We have one sheet filled out, Troy Scheffler.
Good morning. As usual, I have a complaint against the county. I just received recently a copy of an engagement survey that was given to all the county employees. And it took some pulling teeth, but I finally got my hands on it, and now I see why it was pulling teeth. And this is something that you all know about. And before I get into the survey, I want to make a point here. It seems like this county is entirely reactive rather than proactive. And when I say county, I mean the board. It seems like you also give all your authority to what is nothing more than a group of bureaucrats that make the decision and then tell you guys what to do. This has got to stop. This is not why people elect you. You need to stand up, lead boldly, and not let other people lead you. I mean, there's like, 400 or 500 years of combined life experience you guys have that you could put towards this. It needs to be proactive. You're letting this county implode. Now, in particular, as to nobody's surprise, I'm going to talk about the Sheriff's Department in particular. We have Mr. Goddard right here, so feel free to make any comments, Scott, to explain to the public why this is. I'll come up with my theory. So this engagement results that I just got by department, the sheriff comes in dead last. It's actually terrifying. When you look at the Sheriff's Department itself, out of 38 employees that participated in this thing, 29% are completely disengaged. This is our public safety department. 29%. Just imagine. I mean, you have a deputy just rolling around. Well, I just really don't care. And why is this? Why are they disengaged? It's because the sheriff is disengaged. The man was MIA for the past 3 years, and now all of a sudden election cycle comes up and then he's popping his head up. Everyone knows this. Anyone can ask any law enforcement officer in this county if he's engaged himself. No wonder the rest of the county is disengaged. This is absurd. Again, these are the people in charge of your safety, stopping crime. 29%. And that's not even all the people that should have been participating in this survey. Some people didn't. You can count on them probably being even less engaged since they didn't even bother with this survey. The jail, 44%, completely disengaged. Just imagine giving this survey out and that they would be so dissatisfied with their job that they would fill this out and say that. That's crazy. And none of you guys are saying anything about it. You all knew about it. So when I inquired into this, and this might be a little bit beyond Mr. Goddard's lack of engagement, I got an email back from the county concerning this survey. And it has a statement that really stuck out to me, and it should stick out to you guys, and this is why you shouldn't let bureaucrats run the county. It says, and I quote, "We do not do an employee satisfaction survey as that is not what we are interested in knowing." Really? Maybe that's why they're disengaged, because you don't give a damn about the employees. That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, what are you guys up there for? May I understand, I read some of the press releases, you're up there for a retirement program. Okay, I get it. One of you is not going to run again. Got respect for that, other than I don't think you've announced that you're not running. There needs to be some maybe tough love and a little bit more concern with the citizens of the county. And again, a little more bold leadership and speaking plainly and clearly. And it comes down to, again, the sheriff's department and the sheriff, the deputies that look up to their leader. It's not there. And more importantly, and more succinctly, as I brought up this service dog that he has, that was sold to the public as a canine, so the county signed off on it, made the data request, and as Tim Hool can surely verify, he couldn't find one example of where this dog was used as advertised. Not one. We see Mr. Goddard walking around this service dog, and I certainly have sympathy for people that walk around with service dogs. In fact, I have empathy for it. So I've had my history. However, I never said, I want to be a sheriff. I should be a sheriff, and the county should depend on me as a sheriff, elect me as a sheriff, pay me as a sheriff, but I'm just not going to be a sheriff. Be disengaged. Now, how are deputies supposed to be engaged with a sheriff that's walking around with a service dog that is not able to do what he's demanding the deputies to do? That's crazy. It gets to the point where people need to tell other people, out of a sense of responsibility and obligation to the people, that, maybe it's time for retirement. It just is, man. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your history and all the stuff that you did. But you know what? It's actually necessary as a matter of public safety that you need to kind of move on and enjoy retirement. I mean, let's look at this practically speaking. And I hate to beat up.
One more minute.
Thank you. I hate to beat up on the sheriff, but again, public safety, guys. What if a crime happened across the street? What is he going to do? Walk up to the first person and say, hey, can you hold my dog for me while I take care of this? And is he even going to do that? Can we trust that? Is he even going to be around? As I've said before, I was in the sheriff's department 15 different times to see the sheriff. He was not there once, and none of the brass knew where he was. What happens in a disaster? They don't even know where he is? I make a request to see how many hours he even puts in for the past 3, almost 4 years. I get a response that there's just no way to tell. That's crazy. This needs to stop, and you need to start speaking up. And that's, in fact, why I am running. You all know I'm running for District 4, because I'm going to be the one that speaks up, if you guys won't. And if I get elected, I hope you guys follow along and start cleaning up and fixing the county for how terrible it's become. This is on your watch. This is your responsibility.
Thank you. Next, Doug Kern.
Sorry, a little out of breath here. Thank you so much for the things that you guys do. I sent an email to you commissioners with the 2,000 meals. I know you haven't had time to look at it. Knowing that we had laws that were circumvented in the state, that's probably our biggest concern, is that the things that happened in 2020, we just don't want to repeat in 2022. And, I'd really encourage you guys to look at that video I sent each one of you, because, it's not that Crow Wing County did anything wrong, but we had laws that were circumvented at the state level that were passed on to every county. Every county had to follow those laws that were circumvented. So I just really encourage you just to watch that video, 2,000 Mules. Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Doug, I just want to acknowledge I did receive the email, but I did not open it. Rosemary opened it, and she could not get out of it and had to call IT to try to get out of it. So I don't know, when I looked at it, I just saw Mules. I thought it was
Yeah.
that movie,
No,
Two Mules for Sister
it's
Sarah.
extremely good.
And I decided
Extremely good.
I've seen that movie, so I decided not to look at
Yeah.
it. But I'm afraid to open it because
Yeah.
it could be spam, you
Yeah,
know.
well, it's not spam. I
Okay.
can guarantee it's not spam. It's very, very good. So, good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Next item, review and approve the May 10th board meeting minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Barrows. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Review today's agenda. Are there any additions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, the consent agenda.
Any changes?
Pardon?
Are there any changes or additions? Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. 9:05, public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to go into a public hearing for...
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
point of order. I don't think we're ready for the public hearing today.
Oh, we're not?
I believe Mr. Pearson is here to talk about it.
Oh, okay. I would withdraw my motion then.
All right.
Good morning, Tom Pearson here. Represent the applicant Al Hollingsworth on this petition. Therese gave me a checklist of things I needed to get done before today, but I didn't get all my homework done. So I'm asking for you to continue this public hearing to your second July meeting, which I think is July 26th.
July or June?
Yeah, July.
Yep, it's the 26th.
All right. Do we need any action?
A motion would be in order because a motion was made to schedule the public hearing for this date. So to reschedule it for July
26th.
26th.
I'll make that motion to reschedule to July 26th for the public hearing for the vacation of the Wonderland
Under
Road,
road.
I guess.
Road.
What's
Just
that?
Wonder,
Wonder.
Wonder.
no land.
Because there is a Wonderland Road.
Wonder, okay.
Going to Disney or something?
I don't know.
So we got a motion by Commissioner Barrows,
Second.
second by Commissioner Franzine to move the public hearing out to July 26th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We'll see you then. Item 7, land services. Morning, Jake.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. All right, just the one item we have is we're looking for a resolution to support a potential one watershed, one plan for the Crow Wing River watershed in portions of Crow Wing County. That watershed is in the west part of Crow Wing County. So it's hard to believe as I look back on it, we're almost getting towards the fourth and the fifth watershed in Crow Wing County now. I remember coming here 4 or 5 years ago talking about the Pine River watershed and how we're going to be developing these one watershed, one plans over the next few years. And here we're talking about a potential for the fourth or the fifth one. So we're moving along with good water planning in Crow Wing County. Hubbard County SWCD is planning to submit a request for proposal by June 3rd to begin development process. The county has 10% of this watershed in its boundaries. It's about 1,946 square miles and covers 9 counties. Some of the lakes that are in this watershed includes the Gull Chain, North Long, Round, Edward, Hubbard. Those are some of the probably well-known lakes that are in this watershed. If this watershed plan is developed, it will, like the other water plans, prioritize, target, and measure conservation activities to receive clean water dollars through the state of Minnesota within that watershed. A policy committee will be formed consisting of 1 commissioner and 1 SWCD manager within each watershed that's in these counties. And they'll have recommendation authority, but of course, as with all our watershed plans, the final authority is with the local boards. So with that, I'll take any questions. I included some maps in the packet for everyone to look at. I wasn't planning on going through. There's a nice one that kind of shows where the Crow Wing watershed is on the west side there of the county. I'm happy to go through anything else, but at this point, we'd be just looking for a resolution to support. The last thing I would mention is there's a bit of a typo. It does say resolution to support a Crow Wing River. So that's just a little typo there. So any questions or anything?
Mr. Chair, he answered my question.
On the typo part?
Yes.
Yep, there you go.
I was a little confused on where the Crow
Yep.
River was.
Nope, it's the Crow Wing, so my apologies.
All right. So I have no questions.
Okay. Anybody got questions for Jake? If not, you're looking for approval of the resolution.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, wow.
Oh, Gary's got a question.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to sneak in here quick while Land Services was up. I just wanted to report real quick that we continue to hear from folks with their property valuations and their classifications, and we continue to deal with them case-by-case basis. We're up to, I think, 6 days for the county board, just in case you guys weren't up to speed on that. I have an update hopefully by end of week on exactly how many. Just a point to, I guess, to help refresh or remind you guys that this is a state-prescribed process. I met with our Department of Revenue representative last week, and I've been doing this for 12 years for Crow Wing. Never had a state board order, and this is the closest we've ever came. So if you think of the literal almost 2,000 people that have contacted us since the valuations went out because of 40, 50, 60% increases, the state of Minnesota just about gave us another increase that we didn't go up enough in value on our rural vacant land
Whoa,
classifications.
Mr. Chair, I have to say, they're saying they don't have enough yet when we're already at 35%? And some people are at a lot higher number than that?
On the rural vacant land classification, correct? Yeah.
That's crazy. That's outlandish. Where are they coming from, Gary? Tell me why they feel they need to raise that one. That is
Sure.
unacceptable.
You know, we went over 31, 32% increase on those types of properties. So this is vacant land and throughout our county or countywide. And unfortunately, we still were, after time adjustments and their calculations, we were still below the 90%. So they would have recommended, or they would have liked to seen us go probably another 10% in valuation.
In our area, we're already at an average of 35%. Everybody else is running in the 20s, and they're complaining, just like our county is. And they think, the state thinks they need more than that, and it's their process. It's their process that we have to adhere to. That's unacceptable. And I know they were trying to do something at the legislature, and they can't get their job done. That's on them. That's not on us, and it penalizes every one of our taxpayers in Crow Wing County, and that is unacceptable. Sorry.
Well, I don't think there's any of us who disagree with you.
No, Mr. Chair. So Gary, this is the Department of Revenue. How do they know that we're not high enough on our values? I mean, how do they come up with some calculation or something? I mean, are they checking the sales?
Oh, yeah, yep.
They are.
They get every sale. We validate them. We submit everything to them.
No kidding.
They get a master, every parcel, think of the 83,000 parcels roughly we have in the county. We do a massive data submit to them after we adjust all these values annually to them. They get all the data, they crunch it just like we do. They just have a larger database. And they compare our values back to the sales. And it appears to be that, you know, we were a little light on the rural vacant land after a 31, 32% increase on that too. Moving forward, it's a follow-up. We didn't get an order, but it is a strong recommendation that gets brought into line next year, or there will be an order. But we're halfway into the season for 2023, so we don't know exactly, what we're going to be doing.
So, Mr. Chair, so Gary, so they can, is this, apparently this is by state statute, if they don't feel like we're in the number that they think we should be in, they can arbitrarily just come in here and order us to raise that.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Commissioner Coring, I would say they can raise it. I wouldn't say it's arbitrarily. They would have data to say, we believe you're low, and they would, the biggest thing is where we go out to all these, think of all the little neighborhoods and areas throughout the county, from Garrison to Jenkins, and all these little pockets of different types of areas that people may want to, that are more desirable than others. The state doesn't look at that level. They just look at Crow Wing County as a whole and give you a percentage.
What?
So it's a little more broad than what we try to do to really try to.
What's the penalty if we don't, can I ask another question? What's the penalty if we're not a good child and we don't do our, do what they tell us to do? What's the penalty on that then?
Well, not so much a penalty, it's a state board order that they would just raise or lower values as they see fit, not as we would.
It is, Mr. Chair, pretty typical that the state of Minnesota would put in language in these kinds of bills that if we fail to comply, we risk the loss of all state aids. That's pretty typical.
I see.
So they got a pretty good hook in you.
Okay.
What was the percent sales ratio?
For this property last time, it was just 85% basically. So we're, in the eyes of the state, we're probably 5% low of the 90% minimum threshold. But they wouldn't stop at 90%. They look at probably 100%. They would be looking at a 10 to a 15% increase if they make an order on top of what we already did.
So can I ask another question? So rural vacant land, just give me a describe, that's not ag land. Rural vacant would be like if I had a 40 that I used for hunting. Yeah, kind of?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or it can be set aside land, I wouldn't say set aside, but under till or pasture on a farm where you have some land that might be on a 500-acre farm, but it's really not part of the farm activity. It's just kind of sitting out there. And they don't really use it as part of the farm.
So another question, can I ask another question? So, if we, for example, rural vacant, so raising the value up of that rural vacant, it doesn't generate any more money for the state because they collect commercial property tax, but they're not getting any benefit financially off of that, are they?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Was
Okay.
there,
Anyway, I'm glad you come up here just to let us know what's going on.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
and maybe Gary too, was there some work being done on the homestead? Where does all that stand? Is that-
I just know that there was, no taxation or taxes bills were passed at all through the session. So I know there was some movement on raising the exclusion. I didn't hear if it even got out of conference committee, though, if I made it into the final bills and the final push. But there definitely was a lot of discussion, a lot of interest in trying to react to these spiking valuations and how to help people with what potentially could be coming with their property taxes.
Mr. Chair, you may recall that's the issue that we weighed in on not that long
Right.
ago. The chair sent a letter to our local legislative delegation asking them, please try to get this done. My understanding right now is that the tax bill has not passed. I'll try to give you a good legislative summary before the end of the week, but my understanding is the tax bill did not pass. In the absence of the tax bill passing, none of those changes will happen.
Right.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that the Speaker of the House said she would not bring up the tax bill until all the other stuff was passed, is what her comment was. She's holding that as kind of a, I guess as a bargaining chip.
It's the bargaining between the House
Yeah.
and the Senate, and it's about the size and scope of government. The Senate is basically saying they don't like how much spending is in the tax bill or other bills. And so I've heard the majority leader in the Senate say that he may not have an interest in a tax bill. And so you see the jockeying for position between the two chambers that view our public policy issues differently. They're going to have to figure that out. I would expect the governor will not call a special session unless there is an agreement that has already been reached. And that it would be a short special session. In the absence of that agreement, there is no tax bill, there is no bonding bill, and we will just move forward with existing law.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yes.
Doug, I'm sure if you were there, you could get this all straightened out.
Anything else for Gary? Thank you for the update, I guess.
Thanks.
Item 8, Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Just one brief update, and I was actually speaking to John Bowen, our Emergency Management Director, this morning. We're still trying to push out, and I brought this up at the All-Township meeting a couple weeks back, our Crow Wing County Alert Program. So if you log on to crowwing.us, it's one of the first windows that pops up. It occupies about, I'd say I'm looking at it right now, at least half of the page. And it's real simple, register now. And during our last storms that we've had go through, I'm actually signed up for 2 alert systems, and they do work. They go off back to back. So I receive 2 texts immediately, back to back, with the latest updates on the storm, whether it be a storm warning, watch, et cetera, that's coming through. So we certainly encourage everyone to take advantage of that program. You can also log on there and build your own, basically your own menu of what you would like to see. So if you'd like updates of snow plowing, of road closures, of flooding, anything else that's taking place, and it's not just for Crow Wing County residents, it's also for area cities. Some areas, cities have opted in to use this program for Everbridge is the name of it, to help their citizens. So some areas you can also see what the streets, plowing, et cetera, would be, whatever the cities have opted into. So we're certainly trying to push that out, trying to alert people. We end up with such a majority here. Well, I don't even say Friday, because Thursday is the new Friday. So Thursday through Sunday of visitors. But storm season, and we're in the midst of it right now, is always a big concern for us. We have a lot of people visiting, a lot of people that don't live where a siren or any other notice would come through. And so not only our local residents here, but our visitors, that are consistently here, we would ask that they also log on and join this free program so they can get the alerts when they're in our area. With that, I'd certainly answer any questions. As you know, I'm an elected official, so I'm kind of working 24/7. So whenever you can certainly reach out to me, or if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them now.
Mr. Chair, a question for the sheriff. So in essence, what this thing is I know that you can go buy a weather radio and have it, at your house, and the alerts will come on if it's a tornado or it's a thunderstorm or whatever. So in essence, it'd be kind of the same thing as having a weather radio, but it's a weather phone. The alerts would come off on your phone. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, Commissioner. It works very well. So I get a text, and it will say, severe weather warning, and it will say, for the area and the times involved. When that alert is canceled, I also get a cancel on it. And where I live in Ideal Township, I can actually hear both the Breezy Point and the 2 sirens from our area, the Breezy and the Pequot area. And I can actually hear them if I'm outside my residence. So when we had the bad storm come through, time flies, a week and a half ago here, I heard both sirens go off, and at the same time that I was receiving the alert. And that was the one, I guess, that incident was the one where it was reported we had a tornado sighted right just into Cass County on 210, is where that one was reported to be seen. So it is real time. It works very well.
Could somebody, Mr. Chair, could somebody send me an email of how you sign up for that? I'm going to go to my Lake Association meeting on Saturday, and I think that would be a good thing that they'd like to know to sign up for.
Yep, and I can certainly do that. Or if it's this simple, it truly is crowwing.us, and it will pop up, and all you have to do is click on the Register Now tab. and you'll be able to do it.
It's on the
Right
screen.
there, yep.
Right in front of you.
Oh, Lord, okay. You know, I just want to tell a quick story. I think we got time. I know I do. But you know, when I was down in Florida, I don't know if anybody knows, but I had a tornado go by about 8 blocks away from my house. And so my brother was down there, and it was early, it was like 7 o'clock, and my phone went off, and then I could hear his phone going off, and he said, "What's that?" So we went out in the screen lanai porch and looked up, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going like this. I said, "Look at that stuff up there." There was the tornado. I wasn't smart enough to climb in the bathtub, but by then it was already gone by. But 8 blocks, so that was a little too close for a call.
And we can, one option we have with this program, and this is one of the reasons we went with this program, is we can draw a circle on a map and push a notification to any cell phone there, whether they are a subscriber or not. And we use that very sparingly. A similar example would be the criteria for an Amber Alert. We don't just push it out because maybe there's a thunderstorm rolling through. But if we had a missing child, missing elderly person, or if we knew that there's a tornado here, say on one of our bigger BIR weekends where we have a large population that are visiting, we could draw on a map a circle and push that alert to any cell phone device in that area. And in the history of us having this system, it's less than one handful that we've actually pushed alerts out. The most recent one I can remember was the lost boy, oh gosh, probably 2 years ago over in the Crosby area. We pushed alert out on that. So we use it very sparingly. We want to respect people that, you know, they're not opting in, but when it comes to for safety or, you know, trying to find a lost child, we'll do whatever we can, and we'll use all the tools we have. So it's a really useful tool that we'd like to see more people take advantage of.
Anything else for the sheriff? None. County attorney, is he on?
No.
Oh.
Mr. Chair, the county attorney did have a court hearing this morning. He called me. He is planning to be here by 10 for the Cartway damages.
Okay. County administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yesterday we held a senior management team meeting and begun discussions about debriefing the experience we've just had over the course of the past 2 years. I've been doing this work for a long time now and had participated a number of times in tabletop exercises for a pandemic. And I remember at the time I was going through those thinking, oh my goodness, this, you know, hopefully is never going to happen. Unfortunately, it did. I'm very grateful now that I sat through those tabletop exercises. After you're done with something like this, it's what did you learn from it? What did you learn that you did well? What did you learn that you didn't do well? So that if and when this happens again, we can learn from the good things and the bad things. Our business continuity plan, for instance, was really put to the test. And it was because we had to scatter. How do we keep our operations going? We had a business continuity plan, which we used and referred to. And so I remember doing those business continuity plans, and I'm sure all the SMT members in the room could attest to the fact that it's dry and boring work. It's exceptionally dry and boring work. Gosh, am I glad we did that. And so it is to review the experience. So we're going to have a conversation about how we would like to do that internally. You can really go a long ways with this. You can debrief with the community and your partners in the community. We're not thinking in those terms at this point, but just trying to say, what are we going to learn? I don't think this is going to cost us anything. We are going to probably use an emergency manager from another county to come in and help facilitate that dialogue. So just trying to learn from the experience that we've been through. We also talked about elections and what is coming up. And, you know, my goal here always has been to encourage political activity. I love that political activity occurs on this campus. This is the public square that our founders envisioned, vigorous public debate. And so I love that we have that. I also need to manage on your behalf to make sure that we are productive and that we are as productive as we can be. And so I encourage political activity, just not here, not while we're working. And so I did send out a memo, I think you saw that, to all employees in advance of the elections. And it's really, they can have a tendency to create drama and tension here that can take away from our productivity, and I don't want it to. And so our reputation for neutrality as an organization is something that I zealously guard. We talked about just trying to keep the lid on the place while we're going through an election cycle.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question on so Tim, what you're saying is we're not discouraging anybody from being politically active.
Correct.
It's just that when they've punched in here and they're working here, obviously don't be wearing a T-shirt that says some candidate or doing some candidate activities while you're on the job. Is that right?
Yeah, and you know, that's a particularly challenging thing for you guys. We stand here and we have an open forum and people come forward, and it's also a polling place. And so, you know, that is a tension between two competing public values, being able to come here and speak your mind to the county board. But this is also a polling location, so during certain times, there is tension between those competing values. It's just the nature of life.
Yeah.
You know, it tugs you in multiple directions, multiple times.
Is that it? You done?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I got another question. I guess after listening to our open forum and Mr. Scheffler, and I was at the Personnel Committee meeting when we had the, I guess, presentation of this engagement survey, and I guess you know, I'm a little bit forgetful, but I don't know that I would characterize what I heard in the engagement survey of what Mr. Scheffler did, with all due respect. So I guess we've got time, so I guess I'd ask a question to the county administrator. Can you just refresh me on what the engagement survey is and what the, you know, I guess I don't know that you know, I'm not, with all due respect to him, I don't know that I agree with his characterization of it. So what can you just explain that? I guess I don't quite remember how that went. That was several months ago, so.
Mr. Scheffler was quoting an email that I sent him yesterday, and in it, he is correct that I said, we do not measure employee satisfaction. That is not what we're interested in. Satisfaction is one component of the degree to which someone is going to be engaged in the work that we do. Whether they have challenging and meaningful work, whether it's something that intrinsically motivates them, whether our pay system is motivating them, whether someone is motivated to work hard is more than just whether they're happy. And so we don't measure whether they're happy. We measure whether they're engaged in the work we've hired them to do. It is a productivity measure. And so it is the degree to which employees will engage in discretionary effort to advance our mission. So employee satisfaction, there are employee satisfaction surveys. I've never been a fan of them because I don't think it takes into account all of what motivates an employee to perform well. So we measure the degree to which they will engage in discretionary effort on our behalf.
And I will, Mr. Chair, I will say that when you say we don't do employee satisfaction surveys, but we do lots and lots of customer satisfaction surveys of seeing if the general public of who we're serving, if we're serving them appropriately and the way they think we should be. Am I correct on that? Well, the county engineer is sitting here, and he takes great pride in making sure that the roads are done in a timely manner, and we try to get them down to the bare tar, and I know you take that very seriously. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but I would just point that out, that I think we're more worried about the people that we're serving. I guess I shouldn't say that. I'm worried about the people that are working here, but we want to make sure we're serving the public. That's what our job is, all of us.
And I think, you know, we were just talking about two competing values, right? And that's real life. You have things that pull you in multiple directions. So at the same time as we do measure employee engagement, we also measure customer satisfaction. it's both sides of the same coin, because it's those employees who are delivering the satisfaction for our customers. And so that's why you measure employee engagement, because it will be a leading indicator of your customer satisfaction downstream. So we do measure customer satisfaction as well, not across the organization. We don't give a survey to someone who we just put in cuffs in the back of a squad car. We don't. We don't do that. But we do a lot of customer satisfaction surveys. We have 10,000 surveys back on average over the course of the past 5 years that tell us 95% of the citizens who filled those out were satisfied with the work we do. That's 10,000 people telling us they were highly satisfied with the service we provided. That is an important measure of whether we're meeting our mission.
And I just, just to elaborate, I'm sorry about going on, droning on, but, I think about our personnel committee meeting, and, there's people that, they get hired here, and for some reason, I look at the sheriff. You told us there was a young guy that finished, I don't know, what do you call it, the classes over at Central Lakes, and thought he wanted to be a deputy, and was a deputy for a while here, and then just said, this isn't for me.
Right.
And so there's just some people that they might come here and they go, you know what, this isn't for me, and then they just move on to a different job, whether it's, where it would be. So government work isn't quite for everybody. So I if you look at some of the people that are working here, I look at Therese. I mean, this isn't bad, but I mean,
Compliments like you gave.
No, this is not a backhanded compliment, but I think, Therese, how many years have you got here, if I may ask?
32.
32 years. Obviously, it's not a bad place to work if
That's
you've got
right.
32 years in, I would think.
If I can, she supports me. She supports you.
Yeah,
There are a lot of really dedicated employees
I know there
that
are.
work here.
I mean, there's
And if
20,
you
30-year
are
people.
not advancing our mission, you can't stay here.
I just want to make sure the public knows that somebody painting with their brush and saying that it's this way, that isn't necessarily the case. At least I don't find that here. I think we have dedicated employees, and I could have Tim Bray stand up and talk about his employees of how they don't mind going out at 2 o'clock in the morning to plow the roads, and I'm sure somebody will say, well, why in the hell did you go out at that time of the night, or because you're never going to make everybody happy. I know. I try awful hard. I think we all do. But anyway, I think it's a good place to work. I think we're doing a great job. I know for one that I make my own decisions. Tim Hool or anybody else here is not telling me what to do. I think everybody knows I make my own decisions, and I would say that I think the rest of them, I know nobody makes any decisions for Rosemary, I can tell you that. I try to tell her what to do, but she won't listen to me. But
Mr. Chair, if I could, I have one thing I'd like to bring up, because obviously some of this discussion is based on comments made earlier, and where those motives are, I'm not to speculate, but we have a great office. The sheriff's office has great employees, and we have people that are wanting to join our our team. We just had a training orientation yesterday for new people coming in, and that was for our boat and water division, that was for our deputies, and that was also for our correctional officers. It's a tough job, and if anybody has picked up a newspaper or happened to click on a TV with a national news story in the last 10 years, there's a lot of negativity out towards law enforcement. So to take one snapshot and use that as a talking point certainly isn't fair to the people that work in our sheriff's office. It's not a department, it's another misstatement there. It's an office, and it's elected by our people, which is me. And I'm very proud of our people that we have. I'm very proud of the staff we have, the professionalism we do. And to speak to Tim's point, Mr. Hool's point, We do not do customer satisfactions, but you would be shocked with how many times we deal with people in a negative consequence, where they're issued a citation or they are arrested, and we hear thank you. How many times we hear on regular calls for service, where we're just responding and listening to someone's complaint or concern, we hear thank you. We had, within the last 3 weeks, we had 2 families that reached out and expressed their gratitude when a family member had died and our deputies were there doing their business as deputy coroners. And that is the toughest thing that we do, is our death scenes and our death notifications. And for a family member to come forward and say thank you when they have everything on their mind, dealing with the loss of a loved one, what the next steps are, and to still have time to send a thank you card to me for our officers to recognize them, that speaks volumes of what our sheriff's office does. And that is really the focus that I'd like to see, not just a snapshot of one word or one category in a survey. We have a great office, we have great people, and I am truly proud to represent them. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything else? So we're,
We
yeah,
need a 15-minute break.
we'll
Mr.
take a
Chair?
15-minute break, and 10 o'clock we'll.
Okay.
We're good? All right, we're back in session. And item 12 is the Nelson Preserve Cartway.
Okay.
So is, Ryan, are you going to, okay.
And Chelsea needs one behind you. I guess you can do it more.
Mr. Chairman, before we get going, if I may.
Yep.
I'm assuming, I apologize for being late. I think Tim told you I had to be in court. Just want to make sure that we have recessed as a county board and convened as the town board for unorganized territory for this purpose, so everyone's clear that you're functioning in that capacity, not the capacity as the county board itself.
Thank you, Don. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So at the previous May 10th board meeting, we set the route, which is on the screen. The county board approved Route 2, shown in red, with the Nelson Preserve property in blue. Since then, we have calculated the damages, and this is just the county, county staff estimate of damages. I'm sure the petitioner and the other parties have their estimates as well. We took into account the land value within the Cartway, any timber that would be created towards the end of the Cartway. There's some new road creation. We took into account the original road development, the cost of that, which was stated at $250,000 at the previous meeting. Some screening to add some pine trees into down on Keith Unger's property as you get close to the Nelson Preserve. Maintenance, and then some county expenses for staff time and such. We came up with a total of $49,888.90 for the damages. And in addition to that, we recommend that the petitioner be responsible for 1/9 of the annual road maintenance of Marsh Point Road from County Road 105 to Mr. Unger's driveway. And that's just split between the 1/9 because 9 landowners. Also, the petitioner be responsible for half of the annual maintenance of Mr. Unger's driveway itself, since they would be the two parties that share that driveway. Also, the cost of the creation of the new road is all at the petitioner's expense, and they would need to show estimates to the county before starting that work, and then we suggest they deposit that amount with us before they begin that new road construction for that last several hundred foot stretch. And with that, I'd take any questions.
Mr. Chair, so Ryan, so the construction of, or creating the new road going in, that's not included in the 49,888.90?
Correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chair, another question, if I may. Just to understand this, so let's just start at the top, just the first line, Hoffman, $1,041.66 and plus $250. What does that mean, plus the $250? Is that, I think I understand it, is it the 1 year maintenance, past maintenance? Is that what you're doing?
Correct. We estimated past maintenance at $2,000 and then divided by the landowners to come up with $250 as a one-time cost, and then the future maintenance, as I outlined below, as they'd be responsible moving forward. Yep.
Any more questions for Ryan? If not, we can hear from...
Well, Mr. Chair, I do have a question, because Ryan, I'm still confused. We got a number of 32,797, and then you have the 49,888. Are those to be combined, or I'm confused here?
32,797, that would be the cost, or the amount of the damages awarded to Mr. Unger. So kind of at the top are totals. If you add up those totals, they equal 49,888.90, and those are just the breakdowns of how the affected owners would be awarded.
Okay, so that number is included in the 48?
Correct.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, so just to go off of what Steve, or Commissioner Barrow said, so under the Unger, that when you go to the $2,083.32, everything under that line is associated with Unger, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, now I understand. Okay. All right.
Okay, we'll probably have some more questions for you, Ryan, but at this point, we'll hear from the attorneys.
Thank you, members. David Myers here on behalf of Mr. Unger. He had a business matter, could not be here today. Yesterday, I sent Mr. Ryan a statement showing substantially more damages. Did that get to the county board?
I emailed that to them yesterday, Mr.
Okay,
Meyer.
thank you. I don't know Ryan. I think he's a very good environmentalist, but as far as I know, he's not an appraiser. And his numbers, I think, were well-meaning, but they don't fit. When you take somebody's land, you're not just taking a generic acre or half acre, you're diminishing the value of their property. They have a market value to begin with, and then when you take something away, there's a loss. And then you estimate the market value after the loss, and the difference is damages. If you lay out a county road, or if you have a county road and you're widening it, you don't just get to go to a neighbor and say, well, we're taking a half acre of your land. The county assessor assesses your property at $1,000 an acre, so we'll give you $500. It's just, you just don't do that. That's not how it works. You take diminished value. You look at the value of the property before the taking and the value of the property after taking and the difference in there. So when this started, I knew we were going to be here today, and I went out and hired an appraiser. And it was difficult to get an appraiser. This is very unique land, and appraisers are very busy. And I went to a company named Compeer. They're a very conservative lender. They lend money out in regions like this and farms and so on, because I knew they would come up with an appraisal that could be supported, very conservative, because when they lend money, they want to make sure the value they assess to that property can be supported by the loan. So it took them, I want to say, 9 months to come up with a value. It's just difficult. And we assessed both, because at the time we had Route 1, Route 2, Route 3. We did all three of those. But when we got to this property here, Route 2, they looked at comparable sales as best they could and losses and so on. And as I have in my report, they estimated the value of Mr. Unger's property without the Cartway at $625,000. And then they said, okay, if there were a public cartway, as this is going to be through there, how much will the property be worth once the board, if they chose at the time Route 2, how much would it be worth once that cartway is put in there? And they came up with $499,500. So he has a loss of $125,500. It's not just, let's take a couple of acres of land, it's the diminished value of his property. If he were to sell it today, after you do the cartway, assuming the appraisal is pretty close, he would lose $125,000 of value because of what this cartway has done to his property. I mean, think of your own yard. If somebody came by and said, we want a part of your property, and they just want to give you whatever your assessor has for a little bit of land, that's just not how it is. It's the diminished value that you need to look at. So I'm here today asking the board to award $200,000. And I have a solid appraisal in your possession for $125,500. I didn't hear Ryan dispute that at all. That's a solid, hard appraisal. And then that appraisal did not take into account the driveway across Mr. Unger's property up. This is just the woods, $125,000 or $125,500. But it didn't take across that driveway, and it didn't take into consideration the right that he's got to that private easement. So he's a property owner. The best we could come up with is about $74,500. So the total we're asking for damages, if you leave Route 2 as the route, is $200,000. It's supported by solid evidence with an appraiser licensed in Minnesota, an extensive appraisal that we are asking for damages on. And as a county board, I think you got to be fair to the property owner. You can't just minimize this as some kind of a little route through here and we'll give you a per acre price. It's the diminished value of that property that I'm asking for. So I'd be glad to answer questions. I don't agree with Mr. Ryan. I don't believe he's a qualified appraiser. I think he's done his best for the board, but it's not the way it works in condemnation, which is the way you have to look at this. What's the loss in value of the property to Mr. Unger by the action of this cartway?
Mr. Chair, could I? Is it all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So a question. So I guess so looking at that map, that red is the existing road. And the existing road kind of comes right through one lot of Mr. Keith Unger. And so the route that we set, Route 2, is about where that arrow is, the second arrow down, correct? So to me, the road is already existing in there, and so we're going across, or we're not, but it looks like going across about 300 feet, 200 to 300 feet. And you're saying $200,000, that just doesn't calculate for this farm boy. I just don't.
Yeah, the red is not all. This is not a road over here. This is the difficulty right through here. The driveway comes, the easement comes down here. I'll give you that. That's existing.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Unger has a driveway. His cabin is right here, fully exposed to that. That's the $125,000 loss. When he looks out his back door now, he sees a lake. When he's done, he's going to see a private cartway. That road does not exist. You're going to cut it through there. And that's what the appraiser is telling me and you, that the diminished value by putting that brand new path through there, that cartway through there, is $125,500. That's conservative. That's why I asked you to go here. This was substantially less on the north side, and you made a decision. At the time, I told you this was a dramatic cost. So you're taking Mr. Unger's property away from him for the Nelson Preserve, and you're substantially diminishing the value of his property by doing that.
Just want to make it clearer than all that's up there, it shows the actual routes.
And incidentally, if I could comment, Mr. Ryan, I think, has come up with a good scenario on cost. That's not how the Cartway statute works.
No, I think when you say Mr. Ryan, I don't think you're
I'm sorry.
talking about the
No,
county
I'm sorry,
attorney.
Ryan over here.
Simonson.
Mr. Simonson, I'm sorry, correct.
Because I don't want Don to get in
No,
any trouble.
Don.
I'm trying to help you, Don.
The Cartway statute's clear, the neighbors have to try to work this out, and if they can't each year, then they come back to this board, and you have to arbitrate who's going to pay what for the cost. So it's going to be an ongoing matter for you.
So, Mr. Chair, just, so,
If I may, Commissioner Corring, I asked Tim, Mr. Myers, to put up a different picture because it might help what you were trying to explain. So Route 2 is what the board selected, and just above Route 3 you can see Mr. Unger's house. The other one maybe wasn't quite as clear in regards to what Mr. Meyer was trying to explain to you, so I thought that might help you, Commissioner Corring. Excuse me for interrupting.
no, I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around this. Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Sure. So, you know, I'm a little slow, so I'm sorry about that. Well, I guess the question for you is, what you're here, the damages that you're seeking is just for Mr. Unger, and that Route 2, that little yellow part there is what you're saying. And then all these other people that are on the list, that's not included in that 125,000?
That's correct. When we started this, I remember asking for at least $500,000 deposit, because I knew, I mean, look at what you got there, and those people you're talking about, they're here today to testify for themselves as to value. This is a very expensive route. It's the way it is, and it's more expensive because you chose Route 2, but that was your decision. Everybody along here gets compensated, and the huge problem for Mr. Unger is right there, right out his back door. You're cutting a path through there, diminishing his value.
So, Mr. Chair, so you're just advocating for Mr. Unger and that little strip right there, correct?
Well, the 125,000's for that.
Yeah.
There's 70, because he's losing here. This is a private road, and he has a right to be compensated for his loss in that private road. Plus, I believe it's from here over is his private driveway. He's entitled to be compensated for that. That's the additional $74,500.
So then, on where, you see where it splits out, that Marsh Road? So he could actually, Mr. Unger right now could put a gate up there and nobody could have access to that, correct?
That's correct.
Oh, I see.
That's his property. Yeah, all of this is what Mr. Unger's going to give up on his privacy and have to share with the Cartway petitioner.
So, Mr. Chair, so in essence, it isn't really just the yellow part, it's that red part from Marsh Road down?
Yes.
Is, because that's, nobody has a right to go on that, it's a private road is what you're saying?
That's correct.
I see.
That's why the damages are so high here. And plus, his right to go north on that private road. All these people own that private easement. They all have a right to compensation because you're taking their rights away. And some people along the route have more right because right now that is, I think, about 20 feet wide or 15 feet wide in the easement. Well, now you're going to make it 33 feet. And you have no discretion. The statute says 33 feet. You got to do 33 feet.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask a question to Don? So, once we grant this or set the route, and it's a cartway, then in essence, right now it's a public or a private road, and then it becomes like a quasi public road, or?
By statute, once you establish the Cartway, it becomes a public road. So
It
any
does.
member of the public can drive the length of the Cartway. They can't go off the length of the Cartway and somehow turn their vehicle around and drive back out. That's the extent they can do. Once everything's said and done, there is a process to make it a private Cartway. But we haven't had a discussion on that because, and I have two attorneys in the room that know way more about cartways than I do.
Okay.
But my understanding is we could establish it, but it takes agreement of all the parties at some point in time.
It takes what, Don?
Takes agreement of all the parties
I see.
along the way at some point in time. And I would have Mr. Meyer or ask Mr. Meyer and Mr. Kruger to provide their viewpoints as well on that here. I was going to say Your Honor, so I'll just say it anyway, Your Honor.
Well, you can call me Your Honor. I mean, you kind of,
Mr. Ryan,
Same thing.
Mr. Ryan's correct. You have to show it as a public cartway today. That's what you're taking. It could in the future possibly become private. I've done many of these, and nobody ever agrees to turn it private once it's there, so it's public forever.
Can I ask another question? Did you, I don't suppose you did, but did you happen to do an estimate of what the cost would be for Route 1?
Oh, yes. No, I gave it to you in an appraisal. I think that instead of 125,000 was in the 60,000 range. And frankly, Mr. Unger's willing to negotiate on that because he understands there has to be a cartway here. And so if you go back to Route 1, he's willing to negotiate with the Middletons. In fact, the hope would be we could avoid you altogether in a nice way and just do a private easement between the parties. The contention was when the Nelson Group insisted on coming down here. So if you go back to Route 1, I'd ask that you adjourn and let us try to negotiate something on our own.
Can I ask another question? Don?
Yeah.
Don, a question for you. If the county board today so chose to, I know we set the route last meeting, what if we, I don't know, what if we decided to change, hypothetically, if we decided to change our mind, could we do that today, or?
I believe that if the county board chooses to reconsider the route, you can do that, but today was advertised for purposes establishing damages. Frankly, as I've told all 5 of you, this is the first time I've personally dealt with a cartway for this type of a proceeding. I would need to do a little research and discuss it with the other 2 attorneys. There will be a legal way for you to change it. I don't know that you can do it today.
If I could add in deference, until you sign the cartway order, you can make any change you want. It's your discretion. Once you sign the order, then you can't change it anymore, so.
Somehow, Mr. Chair, if I was Your Honor and I was a judge, I'd take you all to the woodshed and I'd tell you to go out in the hallway and get it straightened out.
We tried.
That's what
But
I
we
would,
can't,
that's what I
we
would
can't agree
say.
between 1 and 2. If you say 1.
I don't like being a referee. I feel like I'm a referee, and I think that big boys should work things out between themselves, but that's just my opinion, but.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt again. There was a question in regards to what the cost would be for Route 1, Commissioner Coring, and whether there was an appraisal. And back on April 13th, Mr. Myers had sent me copies of the appraisals for Route 1, 2, and 3 together with a cover letter. And in that email, which I did forward to all of you, and it's referenced that Mr. Myers sent me, the estimated damages for Route 1 were $63,000. And that was just the route. So instead of $125,000, that would change to $63,000 as I read the email that I forwarded to you. And that's consistent with what Mr. Myers had just said. I just thought that that may be helpful in your considerations here today.
Anything more?
Any more questions for right now?
I think we're good for now.
Thank you.
We will. Mr. Kruger, would you care to speak?
Good morning.
Morning.
I think we're still morning.
You know, Mr. Chair, if his back is bothering him, would it be easier to sit in the chair? I mean, it don't matter to us.
I don't plan to keep you guys tied up that
Oh,
long.
okay.
So
All right.
If I do, I'll ask for a chair, but I'd like to hand these out to the board if I could. Thank you. What I've given you is just a short synopsis I put together on valuation of the land. I can put together an appraisal to tell you anything I want to tell you, and I think you've got to use some common sense in evaluating this land. Now, generally, the way land has been evaluated, and like David, I've been doing these for a long time, is that the township board would consider the value of the property, and then they would consider the cost per acre, and then how many acres are you going to take to make up this cartway. All right. Now, if there was something a little extra to be thrown in, I was going 10 feet from your door, that would, of course, justify some additional damages. Now, what I did on this little handout I gave you is just that. I did what is normally done by townships in considering damages. The parcel ID number is self-explanatory. The tax market value I took from the county records. That's the 2022 value payable in 2023. The number of acres per parcel is indicated, and then the price per acre. And we figured out the next page the number of acres you're going to have available, and you just multiply that out by the price per acre, and you get your damages. Now, interesting on this is you normally consider a cartway as a taking, but in this case, the only place that I would consider this a taking would be on Mr. Unger's property that does not involve Marsh Point Road, which has been there for years. Marsh Point Road in this case is a sharing. It isn't a taking. I remember the last meeting we were here, and I believe it was Mr. Huffman, and I may be wrong, said, you know, he commented about the dirt and the dust that he experiences at his house and how he has to wash his house once a year from the traffic on that road. We're not going to be initiating that traffic. We're going to be one of a dozen going by his house, one of 11 going by the next house. And that's another thing. On these calculations that I gave you, you can see where I put users. I divided whatever the amount was by the users because one person isn't causing those damages. And in fact, if I recall what I heard at the last meeting, although the Middletons have been using this property for years, nobody had ever seen them. They didn't even know they were there. You know, so the damage they have caused or would cause appears to me by simple admission to be nil. Now, of course, there is a taking, and these people have to be compensated for that. And we know you guys have the difficult job to do it. The statute is terrible, and you people can't win doing these. Unfortunately, you're put in that position. Now, when we get to Mr. Unger's property, could I have that other piece put up there, please? The other map?
Oh, the map.
You had it up there just before this one, that one, okay. Now, it's my understanding, or my client's understanding, is that that whole red road going down to where it hits Nelson Preserve is not private road, and that the other people within that plat have access. Now, they don't go down where he establishes private road, but they continue to the lake. I just heard of that. I don't know that. Your land department would have an idea if that's true. However, in looking at this road, first off, coming down the driveway, there are no damages going to be caused except by use, all right? And the use would be occasional. There are going to be no trees cut because the road is already there. When you start curving this way to go over part of Mr. Unger's property where he doesn't have his driveway, and then across the other section of Mr. Unger's property, there are going to be no trees cut. The Middletons went with the surveyor, and as he marked the middle line of where that cartway will go, they marked 16 feet or 16 and a half feet from each side. There are no mature trees within that 33-foot that would constitute a cartway. There are some small saplings that have grown up, but it almost looks, and if you look at some of those pictures that came with the appraisal you were given, it almost looks like there had been a road cut through there before. But there will be no destruction of trees by going through Route 1. Now, when this road comes across here, Mr. Meyer indicated that Mr. Unger's house was down towards the lake. It's over 400 feet south of where that road would be. And that house, according to my clients, is not visible because it is tree covered. So that access that is granted to them would have no effect on Mr. Unger's privacy. That was good. And the appraiser actually talks about his building site, that's right, Don, as being private and secluded. That doesn't change by this. It doesn't change at all. You're over 400 feet north through the woods. If you look through the pictures that came with the appraisal provided to you by Mr. Meyer, you can see the trees, and you can't see that house through the trees. And we talk about traffic. Yes, it would be a road, but what traffic do you have down Marsh Point Road today? I don't believe that road is marked no access. If it is, I'm wrong. But the only people using that road are those who live down the road. And if it is marked, it's not no access, but it's the same thing, marked as it's a dead-end road, there's not going to be any more traffic that goes down that road today than there would after the easement is granted. I think you have to look at this common sense-wise. The county has established the values for this property. Privacy is not going to be disturbed here. Are there damages to be awarded? Yes, there are. And we know you have to do that, and we appreciate the effort you'll put into doing that. But I think the damages, as I've pointed out, are more in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. There are no trees going to be cut, like I said. This road isn't going to be any more open than it is today. Can I answer any questions for anybody?
Mr. Chair, I got a question, and just kind of, I still obviously trying to wrap my head around all this. So Marsh Point Road is a private road, but yet it's got a name. And then what about our E911 signs, those lots that, skinny lots that go like that? When they turn to go to those, where would those signs be? I mean, if it's a private road, private roads, I guess, have names. I guess we need to have names on there, I guess.
My guess would be, but I think these folks could confirm it, is that the 911 signs are on Marsh Point Road in front of their houses. True?
True?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Rosemary?
I just have a question. At our last board meeting, we asked the petitioner, or we directed the petitioner to have a survey completed for Route 2. Has that been done at this point?
That has been done, and it's my understanding that Land Services has it.
Okay. Thank you.
We can put it on the screen, Rosemary.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Sorry.
That's what you're looking for?
Keep talking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what to do here.
Hearing from property owners now.
One sec, till we.
Did you want to see a survey before people talk, or is it you approve last Thursday or Friday?
Lordy, the description.
We'll read that into the record.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
Steve, can you read the legal description into the for the record? Lord Almighty.
All right, if there's, can you step forward, please?
It is posted private road. So the side will come down, so it is back up, it's not on the south. So when you walk under, there's a tree that says private road.
Darren Huffman, first property owner on the road. Yeah, I'm just kind of shocked at the numbers that you've come up with. I really don't understand. I mean, you could ask Keith Unger, and he would say that actually I'm probably the one who's most affected by this Cartway, certainly as much as he is. You guys do know that I'm the first house, and so all of the traffic comes past my place. they could split their property up into as many as 12, 15 lots. So, I mean, the traffic could be tripled on that road. You know, I currently don't have any vegetation, so I don't have any screening. People are going to drive by and look right into the living room of my house. I'm 108 feet from the edge of the road, is essentially the edge of my house. You know, I'm going to lose 10% of my yard. I'm going to lose, well, like the attorney just had in the diagram, I'm going to lose 0.35 acres of the property with the widening of the road. And he placed a value even just based on the amount of property that I'm losing. And, you know, I'm trying to understand how, no disrespect to my neighbors, but it's like there's people on there that are getting almost 3 times as much in damages, and they weren't even listed on the petition. And they're not even really, they're just kind of like affected in a much smaller way, because how they'll be affected is they'll potentially pass, there'll be more traffic on the road that they might pass. Of course, we still haven't figured out how this road's going to be maintained or how it's going to be paid for, but of course they're involved with that. But this Cartway, they live all beyond the Cartway, so it doesn't affect their lives. They don't have people driving past their homes. They don't have to deal with any of the true effect of this. So, and it's like, I really need some money for some screening, you know, so I can get some shrubbery or some trees or something out there, because now I'm looking at being less than 90 feet away from the roadway. So it's really, and you know, I've bought that place out there just to have some peace and quiet and a country life. And I understood that I was, you know, buying, and I had the first house on the road that everybody was going to drive past me, but I had no idea that things were going to, you know, pretty much potentially triple in terms of the amount of people that could be out there. So, you know, in terms of additionally, the culvert there could potentially need to be moved if the roadway is widened. So that's an expense that I would have as well. But certainly, you know, the effect overall on my property value, the quality of life, the things that I really need to do to try to mitigate or diminish the effect that it's going to have on me. I don't think the money even comes close to doing any of that. And, you know, I just feel like that more like $40,000 would be a more appropriate figure to, you know, for the things that I have to deal with, for how it affects my quality of life, and then the money that I'll have to invest to try to diminish some of that, so.
Mr. Chair, so $40,000 is what you think that you deserve for this take?
Yeah.
Really? Wow, okay. That kind of blows me away. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Another one of these slow movers.
Take your time. We got time.
Howdy, good morning, guys. My name's Mike Anson. I'm the second one in there, and I have a 30 by 40 foot garage / cabin on the other side. And looking at the what they're talking about giving, I have 2 culverts that are on the side of the road that go into my driveway. So I have like a U type thing. Each one of them culverts alone could be dug up on this thing, which would cost me probably $2,000 a piece just to replace them.
So can I stop?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't understand. I mean, is the whole road going to be redone? I didn't think the whole road was going to be redone.
They've been talking about doing that. They could, right? Once it's a Cartway, they could do whatever they want, right?
I don't know, but.
They could.
Okay.
You just said it.
So graders come in and
Yeah,
take
they're
out
going
your
to pull up. They're
culverts
going to pull up, and I have to have them culverts there.
Yeah.
That's going to cost me at least $2,000 a piece, because you have to get fill in there. And like Darren was saying, he's like 125 feet. That would put me about 80 feet from the road. So, and then one thing you said about because I came up with the number of 45,000. When I bought that property, the road was in there, right? 15, 17 years ago. I paid extra money, so I actually was paying for the road. You know, now I have access, kind of like what Mr. Middleton's going through right now. Now I have access to my property, right? So I paid for that. Also, I paid $3,800 an acre. So now now it's a private road. Anybody can go back there on that road. I know they can't go on my property, but it's not $3,800 an acre anymore. It's way more than that. I mean, it's gonna be way less.
Can I ask another question? What would you do if the shoe was on the other foot and this was you trying to get into your property?
I understand the law. I understand the reason he's gonna get it, but you have to understand, when I bought this property, I'll just say I was smart enough to understand I want to access to my property. So I'm not saying nothing about Mr. Middleton. When he bought that property, maybe he should have thought about that. And I know for a fact that he had an opportunity to be a participant in this, 20 years ago. So that might have been something he maybe should have thought about. Because I thought about it. But I was understand I'm paying $3,800 an acre. I mean, it's not going to be 3,800 acres, dollars anymore. So that's why I paid the big bucks. I wanted the privacy like Darren and all of us wanted. So my number's like $45,000. Because it ain't going to be worth, I think he's got mine $80,000 it's worth or whatever right now. It's not going to be worth $80,000 anymore.
Do you think that you're putting a high number on there just so he won't even be able to get an access? I mean,
well, he's going to get access no matter what, in my opinion. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to.
But I mean, if the number is so high that it's just. I mean, you're almost pricing somebody out of being able to have access to the property.
That brings up an interesting point, because then it's if he's saying he only wants to get back there to hunt and stuff like that, why is he spending all this money on that? See, my fear is he's going to cut it up.
Okay.
Now all of a sudden you got 10 lots back there. Now the traffic goes from 0 to 100 real fast. Now it's not even close to private then. It's four-wheelers, blah 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 blah.
I understand.
And that's the problem.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
So that's kind of the underlying, if I can ask another quick. So I see kind of an undercurrent, this is probably nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but am I getting off the rails, Don, or?
No, you're fine. I just was going to make legal clarification when Mr. Antonsen is done.
So I almost get the feeling like people are afraid that once he gets an access, could lot the whole thing off, and then it sounds like a gazillion people going down.
Yeah, you can have a trailer court back there.
I see.
And the problem is too with I was talking about the culverts. Now, he says he's not going to do that, but he can. And if he sells the property, whoever buys it is going to be able to knock my culverts out. And then who's going to be responsible for paying for that?
I understand.
And $1,000 ain't going to cover it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I might ask the question, a follow-up to Commissioner Coring. All of you have the ability to sell off lots in there, correct? You all have
I don't know what the,
I don't know if there's a gentleman's agreement, but everybody has the
I guess I don't know the exact rule on that. I know some places there's a certain amount, you have to have a certain amount of acreage and stuff like that.
right.
But I suppose you
think
could.
you all have the ability to do that. I'm just saying that that's no different than what the Middletons could do. Everybody could do that.
Yeah, right. That's how the whole thing started, was chopped up into 15-acre lots. And then the road was put in there so we'd have access and we'd have kind of, private little community there.
Yep.
So that could, I suppose we could all chop it up into 5-acre lots. You could have a small city there.
Right. And that's the only point I'm making.
Right, no, I get what you're saying.
Yep.
But that wasn't the intent.
Correct.
But now the potential is, and, just knowing all these guys for all the years I know, that's not what our intent is at all.
So what I'm saying, though, is of the whole group, every one of you owners out there, nobody knows the intent of the next guy.
No,
And somebody could pass away and the family decides, we'll just lot it off and we'll make a bunch of money off from that. They could do that.
They could, but that's a lot of low land in there, so I don't think that's it's very low land. I mean, it'd cost a lot of money.
Well, any of those would have to obviously adhere to the planning and zoning rules.
Yeah, you'd have to go through all that stuff.
That's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, that's a whole separate thing.
Right.
But, that's people's rights to do
Right, but
whatever they'd like with their property within the zoning ordinances, so.
Yep, you'd have to go through all that other stuff would be
Right,
separate.
Yep.
Okay? Thanks, guys.
Mr. Chair, if I may provide a legal clarification of some of the questions that Mr. Antonsen posed and were answered. If Mr. Middleton or anyone in Mr. Middleton's succession of interest in regards to the Cartway wants to expand that road, including the cost of putting in or replacing culverts, it's 100% Mr. Middleton's expense. And before he would, my recommendation to the board would be before he would be allowed to do anything of that nature, a requisite amount of money is deposited in Crow Wing County's appropriate account, just so that you know there would be enough money to cover the cost of that type of construction. Not saying anyone has that purpose today, but it does become the developer or the petitioner's expense.
You know,
Under
Don,
the law.
I could see that if they at some point decide to do that, but why would we want to hold on to their money for something they may have no intentions of doing? That's not right.
I'm not saying that you should try to establish all potential uses and expansions. I'm just trying to answer some of the concerns that if tomorrow or in 5 years from now, if this goes through and Mr. Middleton wants to expand that road and culverts have to be replaced, whether it's Mr. Middleton or his successor, they have to pay for it. Mr. Antonsen would not have to pay for it under the Cartway law.
Okay, but now here's the problem with that is it's not across the road. It's my driveway.
Okay.
So I got to use the driveway, you drive in, then you drive out. So there's 2 culverts. Is he responsible to pay for all that to replace my stuff?
That's a good question, and if it somewhat provides collateral support or is impacted by that, he may have to, yes. I can't say that he will have to. I misunderstood your comment, sir, I apologize. I thought the culverts were under the road.
The way it stands right now, they could come there, if he granted a Cartway and he's going to get it, we get that. But also you take up the culverts, take them away, haul them away because he's got access to that. And then I would have to sue him probably to get
Again,
my culverts replaced. That would be the problem there.
My understanding.
So you're getting attorney fees, you're getting all this other stuff too.
I understand your concern, I understand your frustration, I'm just trying to provide legal guidance to the board.
I just want to make sure we're clear on this culvert's not across the road. It's my problem.
But if they rip the culvert up
Yes.
as part of road construction, my opinion is it'd be their expense to replace it.
Okay, but are they going to put the culverts in, are they going to replace them in my driveway?
I can't speculate at this
I
point.
just want to make sure that's clear. It would be on me.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add that little bit of
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Jeff Hoff. I'm the property east of Mr. Unger. We have 2 lots, both of them are 15 acres. We have a total of 30. When we purchased our lot, the first one there next to Mr. Unger, part of our cost, it was $150,000 for 15 acres. Approximately $25,000 of that cost was for the road itself. Now, with the second lot, it was the same thing. So I've got like $50,000 into this kitty for this road. In addition to that, a couple of years ago, we ended up putting maintenance on that road, bringing in Phil and hiring a person to do it. That was $10,000. We all threw in on that. So when the time comes for this road to be maintained and this road to be taken care of, who's going to pay for that and who's going to do it? And by having this opportunity of putting a new road in, how far is that road going to go down? Is it going to go down from Marsh Point all the way down to Mr. Unger's, where it winds off to our property, that someone's going to take care of that? Or is that going to be left to us as owners that we've been doing for years to kind of collect money from each other to do it? And then we do it ourselves. How are we going to get a hold of Mr. Milton to do that? How are we going to get money from him to help? That's my biggest concern. The other thing that we always talk about as a group, as the Carlsons, both Jeff and Steve, our kids have all grown up together for the last 15 years. Our properties are, I believe, all in trusts, so our families will be on that for 3 generations because now our kids all hang out together and their grandkids and our grandkids all hang out together. So those properties will never be sold. Those will be in our family for probably forever. Okay, so that's where we sit as a group. And our biggest concern is the maintenance of the road, and then, of course, the traffic with the road, who's going to be paying for that? That's my biggest question.
So before he leaves, my question for you then is, how much compensation do you think you deserve?
Well, if I had to put in $25,000 for every 15 acres, Mr. Milton should as well. So if he's got 60-some acres, take that times 15,000. That's just fair for what we had to pay. In addition to that, we've already got 10,000 in, and our road looks like a bomb shelter. If you guys drive out there lately, we got potholes everywhere. It needs to be fixed again. I've got a bid. I just gave it to the attorney last time we met. It's $10,000 for another person to come out and do it. So these costs are ongoing. In addition to that, I mean, I live out there now full-time, so I'm on that road every day. My garbage is picked up on Mondays. I have to take it all the way to the end. There's always trees falling down, so I have to take a chainsaw and cut my way in and out all the time. So Mr. Milton can be doing that. These are questions that we've been just doing as good old boys and brothers and sisters here, but now we've got another group of people. Like you said, there could be 15 more people that we don't even know all of a sudden developed into that property that are doing the same thing in the road, going up and down it, but not throwing any money into it and not doing any maintenance, not helping take care of it. So it's a big can of worms that is going on here. It's not just someone trying to get access to their property, which when we built the road years and years ago, he had an opportunity to get in. He should have at that time, but he hasn't. So now it's up to you to decide what we got to do and how we're going to take care of it and who's going to pay for it. That's our biggest concern. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Carlson. I live towards the end there. I guess I'm just going to speak my piece. You know, I love all my neighbors. Middleton has the right to get onto his property for hunting or whatever. And I guess what I heard today was if he was going to do anything with the road, he would be responsible for the cost of the road, okay, which I agree with, okay? I also understand that the road cost us $250,000, and in the proposal we seen at first, he was paying about $25,000 to hook up to that road, basically. And I'm also 100% okay with the maintenance being divvied up between the landowners up to Keith's driveway, and the piece of Keith's driveway maintenance being done on that between Keith and Mr. Middleton going forward. So I was in agreement with the first thing. The only piece that I don't agree with is the area where you guys are asking for the Route 2. I think you should reconsider Route 1, okay? And if there was any way that could be an easement rather than a cartway, I think that would possibly leave that as a private road. And as far as compensation for myself, I am not looking for any compensation. I am just looking for Mr. Middleton to help us with the road repairs as the roads needs repair going forward.
See, and that kind of gets to, Mr. Chair, the question that I have is, why wouldn't he chip in on the road that's existing there now? And to me, Mr. Unger is the only one that, in my mind, it almost seems, just seems like he should be the only one that would be getting compensation. And if he's chipping in on the other road, I don't know what the...
Yeah, I guess where I'm at is if he chips in on the road repair, and if he goes with the Route 1, okay? At that point, he's chipping in on the road repair.
Right.
And it's a lesser burden to his cost to Keith because he's really going more towards a line and he's not going in Keith's backyard. And I heard that you can't see that, but I go up to Keith's house and visit. You can see from Keith's yard, you can see back to where that road is going to be going through.
Sure.
Okay? So if you would reconsider Route 1, okay, it would take some of the burden off Keith, okay? And like I said, my thought is he pays up a little bit for the hookup because there was $250,000 put towards that road, okay? And then he chips in for the maintenance of the road up to Keith's driveway. Him and Keith, you know, if he's Route 1, it doesn't matter, he pays up to that. And then after that, if he subdivides, I can't stop him, he can't stop me. But if he's the one that's going to put a development in there, then he should be responsible for the construction of that road. And if he takes out people's property due to that, their culverts, or they have to move their septics or whatever, that should be part of the cost of the road.
Yeah.
And that should be his expense. Okay?
Okay.
There's my 2 cents.
Yep.
Okay?
I'm Jeff Carlson. I own the last two lots there. I'm kind of on the same page as my brother there with sharing the cost of the road, not asking for a pile of cash. I do have a couple concerns though. The route that you guys have chosen through Keith's driveway here, if you notice, it goes right by the end of a pond, and our road goes past that. Well, there's a culvert that goes through there that was man-made. That's actually that was a man-made pond. There's a dike. It's probably the edge of the pond is probably about this high. Then it goes down into a ravine, and there's a culvert that goes through there. The culvert is blown out multiple times over the years. So what they do is they add another culvert in, they raise it, it goes up. So what happens when that culvert goes out, it blows our road out. It goes into Mr. Hoff's property, and it blows that out. If you go up there right now and you look, he's got approximately 2 acres of dead ash trees from being flooded because it blew our road out in the past. So now we have this dilemma. We have Mr. Middleton and Mr. Unger that obviously don't get along real well, and we don't know who's going to take care of this culvert at this point. So we need some kind of guarantee whether they're going to take care of it, or if it was put back on Route 1, it might alleviate a lot of these problems. You know, so it's just something else to consider. This is how this is affecting us down the road because this maintenance doesn't get done. As far as the costs go, you know, we all spent about $25,000 per lot. I guess you guys have understood that. You know, if that was awarded to us, I would think it would just go right back into the road for maintenance. You know, nobody's trying to line their pockets here. Is kind of what I'm saying. And kind of a handshake agreement that we just kick in every year and help out a little bit. We're not trying to make any enemies here, but that culvert is a big concern, and it wasn't brought up at the last meetings, and it really should have been. Even when you did your environmental impact, you should have looked at it because that's a man-made pond. And like I said, there's a dike there where that road is, and it's inevitably, it goes out a lot. Mr. Middleton even spoke about it when his younger years, that was the problem to get to that property because they had to go through that culvert area. I talked to another friend of mine that's in his 70s that grew up in this area, and he as well said, you know, he used to rice down there, and right in that pond area is where they had a hard time getting through that. So that's always going to be a problem. As you add more traffic to it, blah, blah, blah. You see where I'm going with it? So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if that helps or hurts, but...
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I ask Tim or Therese, can you put that other map up? I don't know which one that is. I don't know. Is that the one? Yeah. Now how do I get that here? Projector. Okay.
I can point out where that culvert is that goes out on the road if you need to.
You can see how the wetlands goes down.
Yeah, as you look at Hoff's lot, you can see where it's kind of dead spot there. This is the lot.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
I
if
think
you will.
it's on the
just,
podium.
Up here on the table or somewhere, there's a pointer.
There's
Show
one
us
on
where
there.
that culvert is.
I got to figure out how to operate it.
We got it on.
It's on the side.
What's that? It's on the side?
On the side.
The little red button?
There you go.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, if you look, okay, this is where that culvert is right now. Now you see how this is all wetlands right here? This is Mr. Hoff's lot. There's a culvert right there. I personally filled that back in myself a few years back. But this culvert here, and it's actually plugged today. If you go down there right now, it's plugged. The beavers basically plug it up over the year. The culvert's only about 2 feet around. It should have been a bridge initially. So what's happened is they've filled that in over the years and created this pond. This used to be, from what I understand, kind of a prairie grass area. There was a farm back here where Mr. Unger is, and they actually used to, I'm not sure what they all did there, but it wasn't a pond. So they've created this pond, and of course we have a dam basically built here now. And when that blows, it goes through Mr. Hoff's property. This area is all dead trees now from over the last 10 years because it blew this out and it raised this culvert up as well. Now, my concern is this culvert right here, and if these two aren't getting along, nobody's going to take care of that, and of course it blows out this road, and my land is down here. So us three, me, my brother, and Mr. Hoff, have this dilemma on our hands now because of this. So my concern is how this gets handled. If the route got moved up to here, Mr. Middleton would be out of it. It wouldn't be his problem at all. It'd just be Mr. Unger's problem, which would alleviate things. Personally, the road should have went in here years ago and went to Mr. Unger's property, where it's drier up here, but they built the road at the bottom of a waterfall is what they did. So I don't know if you guys can take that into consideration, but that's how it actually works there.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say to you and your brother, I appreciate you not trying to turn this into a gold mine for yourself.
we're just trying to make it work for everybody.
I appreciate the reasonableness of your comments, I really do. And Mr. Chair, I think I'm getting close to making a decision here, at least for myself. I don't know that I'm...
Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
The public hearing is still open. You might want to just continue to take public
Well,
comment.
that was a comment. I'm getting close to making a decision, and I don't know that I'm, all right, well, let's finish the public comment, and then.
Somebody may say something that affects your.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true, but I'm getting close to everybody that's here.
Mr. Chair? Brian, can I ask you a question in regard to this? Ryan, I believe that Route 2, when we selected that at their last meeting, was the fact that Route 1 was going to have where that wetland crossing is that we did not know if that was crossable. And so we wanted it, making sure that they had access to the bottom part of that property. Can that property be filled in at all, where the wetland is?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Brecken, I believe technically a road could be built through there. It would likely need to be approved by the state through the Wetland Conservation Act review process, possibly also the Army Corps of Engineers. I don't think there's any guarantees that would be approved. And then with the moratorium that we have on boardwalks, that would also be an issue for construction across there. So we just thought it might not be feasible or reasonable access, and so that's why we picked Route 2. We thought that was more reasonable access.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Ryan, again, in your damages, it states petitioner responsible for 1/9 of the annual road maintenance from 105 through Marsh Point Road. As well, petitioner responsible for 1/2 the annual maintenance for Unger driveway. So does that not address a lot of the concerns with the road that we've heard?
We believe so. Yep.
Yeah, so.
And those costs would be in addition to the $49,888, yep.
So I guess the fear of this moving forward and the Middletons not paying for any of the road maintenance or damages, I believe is covered in Ryan's projections here. So I don't know if that helps with some of your concerns, but I just wanted to point that out because it appears that they're not expecting to not participate in the cost of the road maintenance. So.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask Ryan a question. When you talk about the 1/2 of the maintenance for Mr. Unger's road, his driveway, is it only the lineal feet from where it departs Marsh Road down to the yellow Route 2 strip there, or is it all the way down to Mr. Unger's house?
So for that portion, Mr. Unger's driveway starts right about here.
Yep.
Goes all the way down to his house. Since they're turning off of the driveway here, which is roughly halfway, that's where our logic came in that they should share the cost.
That was the calculation that was utilized? Okay.
That's going to be in addition to that $49,888 number.
Right. What I'm getting at, though, is they're making no impact from the Route 2 yellow line down to Mr. Unger's house, so that Middletons would not have to participate in 1/2 of the maintenance cost of that stretch of the driveway.
Correct. They have to participate in half of, from here to Mr. Unger's house, half of the total.
Why?
Maintenance cost. I guess another way to think about it would be they'd have to participate in 100% from here, and Mr. Unger could do 100% from here. But we figured they'd both share this driveway and they could split the maintenance 50-50. I don't know if Don has any clarifications, but.
I briefly did meet with Ryan yesterday to kind of go over the numbers and stuff with him to help out. And we didn't specifically get into the whole length of the driveway, as I recall. I see your question, Mr. Commissioner, that once he splits off, he shouldn't have any responsibilities post where Route 2 splits off. And ultimately, what the damages are and what the maintenance responsibilities going forward are up to the board to establish in the award of damages. It sounds like most of the expensive stuff's north of that, or whatever the direction is, up toward Mosh Point Road anyway. Certainly, he could be responsible for 50% of that particular annual maintenance, and he and Mr. Unger would split that, and then that would terminate, and he'd be responsible for 100% of Route 2 as it's shown on yellow there. You could certainly do that.
Mr. Chair, I am going to say something. I know this isn't really, we didn't make a motion to go into a public hearing, but we're hearing from the public. But I'm just going to weigh in that Mr. Chair, I'm not making a motion, but I'm very much, and I hate to be thinking like a lawyer because I know it's billable hours, but I'm thinking about making a motion to table this, and the reason why is I think we all have the right to change my mind. I know some politicians, I'll never change my mind, but I want to revisit the routes. I really do want to revisit the routes, and I'm not going to vote in favor of any damages today because after I've heard all this, I think I am leaning towards a different route because I think it would be a whole different story then. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in, but I'm very close to making a motion, and I don't want to make the motion because the motion to table is a non-debatable motion, so that's the end of it once I make that motion. So I just want to see what everybody else has to say.
And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I know we're still in the public hearing.
I can't hear you, Rosemary.
I know we're still in the public hearing, so we're not probably supposed to be doing this, but the simple fact is ever since the last meeting, I've been going over this in my head too, and I'm not sure we made the right choice at the last meeting. And I would very likely change my vote if we can even do that.
And I just got to ask, I guess maybe to Ryan, the Route 1, when we grant, I guess, easement or cartways, it's based on a feasible way to access the property. Is that correct?
My understanding is meaningful access.
So if Route 1 is impacted with wetlands and whatnot, we're kind of gambling with a meaningful easement to their property.
That would be my suggestion, but again, I don't know that that's.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to make that clear because I don't know, and again, I don't remember from the on-site, but I thought there was some wetland implications on Route 1, and that could get shot down by whomever is the authority to fill wetlands.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay. So, and we spoke about Route 3, which is
It's out of the question
in Mr. Unger's backyard. Route 2, I recall on our visit, was from that point, the Younger property was not visible. I think there's quite an elevation change in that is why we, I think, moved it back so it does not interfere with his privacy. So I guess I'm just concerned that we revisit the routes and select one that might not be allowed.
Mr. Chair, can I elaborate on that and ask
Yes.
Don a question? So, Don, what is the...
If I may, before you do that, my recommendation from a legal perspective would be that you conclude your public hearing.
Okay.
When the public's done speaking, close the public portion of that and then bring it back to the table for this discussion. You still have all of your legal abilities as you would have right now, but that would be the more appropriate format to follow, my suggestion. And of course, I will defer to your parliamentarian because typically that's Mr. Hoole's role, and so I'm not trying to interfere more than I normally do. But if he has a different opinion, I'd ask that he share it.
And see, I'm being kinder and gentler today.
You are.
I am. I'm trying to make a decision.
The purpose of the public comment, go back to that. The purpose of the public comment is to inform your judgment.
Yes.
And so I would suggest that you listen to everybody first, because then you can take into account what they've told you.
Right.
And then you go into the discussion of what are my options, what are the pros and the cons. It otherwise looks like you're making up your mind before you've heard from everyone. And that isn't what I think you want to do.
Yeah, and I'm not making up my mind. It's just that I'm...
You're telegraphing.
Yeah.
The only one we haven't heard is Mr. Middleton.
Yeah, so far,
So-
I think we've heard from every one of the property owners, but if I'm a betting man, I'm betting there are two attorneys chomping at the bit to rebut what they've heard.
Mr. Chair, just so you know, there is one person on Teams, whether she wants to speak or not, I don't know.
I think it's a person from our office watching today, so I invited her
Allison?
to see how it works. Allison?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
that would be from our office, a law clerk. So we did an environmental report, and it addressed that wetland issue, and it said it's not listed on the Minnesota Natural Resources Public Waters Inventory, so the state doesn't have jurisdiction over it. You would, it's your local would, and high probability the federal wouldn't either. It's a small, less than 5,000 square foot, according to the environmental report, and you have a copy of this, and I'll give you another one. It's 4,356 square feet potentially. Maybe you'd have to get a federal permit, but maybe not, and that's what we came up with. So you have that information already for Route 1 if you wish to do that. That it probably, secondarily, I would say that the reason, I mean, Route 1 gets you to 15 acres. In your county in particular, there's a lot of wetlands, and if everybody who can't get to a particular spot in their property comes in here for a cartway, you're going to be doing a lot of this. So he gets to 15 acres. I mean, he gets to his land. It's reasonable access, as I think Mr. Ryan said all three were last time. So he could get there. The fact that he can't get on another part of his land isn't really your problem. I mean, everybody's going to be in here, I shouldn't say, but you know, people have these wetlands and things in their property. I can't get here, I can't get there. I'm going to run down and get a cartway because I want to get to another place on my property. In fact, there'd be nothing if you gave Route 2. We might be back here in a year asking for a new cartway to Route 1 because you can't get north if that's wetlands is impeding his access. So I don't think the wetland's an issue according to the environmental report from WINC, probably a company you guys use when you do environmental work. Any questions? Thank you.
I disagree with Mr. Meyer. You can't get a cartway if you own the property. What you are doing here is granting access to the property, period. There is no access at this time. And in that situation, you have to give meaningful access. Now, the court has determined that access to, say, 10 acres out of a 40-acre parcel is not reasonable access. So if you're giving access to 15 acres out of 70 or 45, is that reasonable? I don't believe so. Number two, if you're going to table this, go out there now. Take chest waders. It's underwater. And that's evidenced by what we heard, the discussion of the culvert on the right, not even the lowland on the left. Okay. And then the third thing, which I'm going to back off quick because it sounds like you're going to wrap this meeting up fast. Damages can't be speculative, okay? If a road is in, you award if there is damage to the road caused by the cartway. If I spent $50,000 on a road and a Cartway is granted over it, that doesn't mean my road has been damaged. Somebody's using it, but you look at the value of the property as a whole. The examples that I gave you using the square footages, the acreage, and the costs assessed against this property. Repair is addressed, maintenance is addressed by the statute. And you don't just take how many properties are using it, you look at how many people. A family may have, 2 adults and 4 children and everybody drives. One family may drive 3/4-ton trucks and the other family drives, electric cars. Where's the damage coming from? It's not just the number of lots that have access to the road. It's the usage from each of those lots that you look at when you're apportioning damages or maintenance costs for the road, which would be damages. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Board, again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. At this time, we will end the public comment and bring it back to the board. Where do we start?
Does that require a motion?
No.
It was not a formal public hearing. You were taking public comment.
Okay.
So my question then, Mr. Chair, question of the parliamentarian then is one thing I don't like is I don't like prolonging this because this has been going on for a long time, and I know this county board said enough is enough and we're gonna move forward, but I guess what I don't know if this is for you or for Don. What if I am not ready to award the I personally am not ready to award the damages today, and I would like to revisit the routes. How would I, as a commissioner, address that?
What I would suggest is that you would move to table and direct staff to notify the property owners of your intent to reconsider the route, and then schedule it for the next county board meeting, if you wish. While you're thinking about that, I'm also going to take this opportunity just to look at all of you. Do you understand that as soon as we take action, you have ceded authority over your road to us? You will come to us for every dispute that you have over the cost of the maintenance of this road. It will no longer be your road. It will be our road. Are you sure you want this blunt instrument to resolve this for you? If they table this, I would strongly encourage you to meet with each other and see if you can't work this out, because you working it out will be you retaining control over the property. Us working it out will mean we retain control over the property, and you will have to come to us all the time. Are you sure?
So, Mr. Chair, if
Before
anybody
you
else is...
would do that, Commissioner Corrigan, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I would just slightly modify Mr. Hull's suggestion in that if you do decide to table and bring it back to a future board meeting, that you make it clear that you may be reconsidering the route and damages at the same. Okay. So first you would reconsider the route if that's your choice, and then as soon as you either affirm the route or reconsider, you would shift immediately to damages based on the input so far received. And I think if you 5 determine it is the fact, you have sufficient information now after this public input to make those decisions. That way it's clear to everyone what's going to happen at the next board meeting. For your consideration, Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Chair, I would so move that we table this and instruct staff to notify the landowners that the board may reconsider the routes, and we will decide the damages at the next county board meeting, which is what, Therese?
June 14th.
June 14th.
So can you say that again?
So I would move to table this whole proceeding until the next county board meeting, where the county board may reconsider Route 1, Route 2, and Route 3. May means possibly. And then we would award the damages at that same county board meeting.
Okay.
And that is a non-debatable motion.
So you don't need a second.
Yes, I do need a second.
Second.
Mr. Chair, are we setting a time for that?
To the June 14th board meeting.
To the June 14th, 10
You just
o'clock.
want it, okay.
10 o'clock.
Part of the agenda or at 10 o'clock again?
10 o'clock, I guess.
10, okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Coring, a second by Commissioner Franzine to table this application.
Mr. Chair, it looks like Gary is trying to say something. I don't know if you've already got your motion in second. If you
It's
want him to
actually-
talk?
The parliamentarian, it is a non-debatable motion.
That's correct.
Oh, now he's got his hand up.
It's
Sorry, Gary.
It's a non-debatable motion.
I'll take my licks after this, but just remember, County
Gary.
Board of
Gary, it's a
Appeals.
non-debatable
Gary.
motion. It's a non-debatable.
I'm going to have to ask you to stop talking so they can vote on their motion. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
You got all the information you need.
June 14th, 10 a.m. to reconsider route and award damages.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Chair, what is the call?
Pardon?
Motion passed, motion failed?
Motion passed, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Coring, second by Commissioner Barrows to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?